And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori. I'm with Career Services, and today I'm joined with Eric Jones. He's with Student Money Management. And Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm the director of the Student Money Management Center. We have been open for 8 years now, and what we do is we work with students to build their financial literacy, financial capability, and also help them with financial planning.
Excellent, excellent. And I am joined today by my fantastic co-host, our transition specialist down at the Gainesville campus, Tanya Hargrove. Say hi, Tanya. And so Tanya is our co-host today. So she's going to make sure that she monitors the chat. If you have any questions, just go ahead and put that in the chat and she'll be taking care of that. And we'll do a few dramatic pauses every once in a while so that Tanya can ask the questions. So feel free to jump in anytime, Tanya, and we will go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking, this is part of our graduation boot camp series, and we're going to be talking about moving on, moving out, and basically some things to consider if you're going to be, whether it's moving out of just simply out of mom and dad's house, moving out of an apartment that you have roommates, or are you moving for a job? Maybe it's down the road, maybe it's out of state, maybe it's overseas. So there are a lot of things to consider when it comes to relocating for your job and to help build your career and just that whole transition phase after you graduate. So I was wondering if, starting off right off the bat in the chat, if anyone can put in the chat when they are going to be graduating, or you think you're going to be graduating. Are you going to be graduating next month, next year, a couple of years from now? So just trying to get a sense of what are some of the graduation dates. And Tanya, if you can let me know what some of those dates are.
Okay, summer 2023, spring 2023, December 22.
Ooh, next month. Awesome.
This December, congratulations. A few this Decembers. So that's good. Oh, someone have already graduated.
Oh, fantastic.
Congratulations to you.
Awesome, awesome. So thank you for sharing that information. So for those of you that are graduating in just a month, way to go, you're almost there. And then for those of you that are graduating next year, you're still almost there, just not as close, right? So let me also start off with a quick poll. And thinking, are any of you considering relocating for a job, for your career? Yes, no, depends on the location, depends on the job itself. I'm happy to relocate if, depending on if your family or significant other is okay to move, because that is a really big decision if you have family members involved as well. So I'll give you just a couple more minutes, well, a couple more seconds to fill out the survey there. All right, I will go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So it looks like some of you, most of you are, it depends on the location, and that is important, especially if you want to stay either near family or as far away from family as possible, depending on what your family situation is. And, maybe it depends on the right job. And some of you are, yes, I am definitely looking to relocate. Can't wait to have that opportunity. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, are some of these different things that you should really consider is, what's the impact on your career, the impact on your family, all the finances involved. And that's where Eric's going to hop on and talk about all of that good stuff. And then, of course, once you make the move, how do you make it a new home? How do you connect to a new company, a new community? And that's always sometimes kind of tricky. And we were talking right before we got started about how many times we've moved. And Eric, I think you had said you've moved about 3 times.
Yeah, I moved from Georgia to North Carolina, from North Carolina to Delaware, and then from Delaware back to Georgia.
Right, right. And Tanya, you've moved a few times yourself.
Yeah, I moved several times, and well, I was raised in a military family, so we moved from California to Okinawa, Japan, from Okinawa, Japan to San Francisco, from San Francisco to Santa Ana, from Santa Ana to Oceanside, California, from Oceanside, California, then finally I came to Florida, and then now I'm in Georgia. So yeah.
Yeah, world kind of just around the world there. And it's so funny because
yes.
I'm married to a retired Marine, and so we
Uh-huh.
moved about 9 major moves, and so we were also in
Yeah.
Okinawa and Oceanside, California. So it's just interesting to hear Tanya talk about the places she lived, and I'm like, I've been there too. So a lot of moving experience here on the call, that's for sure. And so when you're thinking about moving in terms of your career, you have to really consider, well, what is that opportunity for you? Is it where you're going to be promoted? And in some companies, the only way that you can be promoted is to relocate and to go on to other locations to where you can, gain new skills, new experiences, other departments. Is it basically where you're maintaining the same role, but you will have other kind of experiences and training and skill sets that you will pick up? And then also, how long is that opportunity going to last? Is this something that's a contract where it's 6 months to a year? Is this something that you're hoping is going to be a lot longer than that? And then also thinking about, well, what are your career goals? Is this something that you want for your career? Do you want to be promoted? Or are you looking to gain new skill sets? Or does that not interest you at all? And especially because of the location. So when you're researching employers, one of the things we always encourage students to do is figure out, where are all of their locations? Are they across the country? Are they around the world? What are the opportunities? Because what if one of the locations that they say, hey, in order to get promoted and to really rise up in the company, you have to go to a location that maybe you don't like. And for some of you, that's not something you're really looking forward to. A location might be really important to you. So those are some things to really consider. And then also think about, well, what if you don't like the job or you don't like the location? And I can tell you, definitely in the military, we don't always get to choose, obviously, where we live. And so we ended up in locations that we weren't always too happy about. We were kind of stuck there, but if it's, you're choosing to move to a location and then you realize, this is not what I thought it was going to be. These people are not the kind of people I thought I'd be working with. What's your backup plan? Do you think you would stay in that location, but just find a different employer? Would you just head right back to where you were before? Trying to think of all these different contingency plans and, how will this really impact not only me, but my family? And the family doesn't necessarily have to be if you have a spouse and a child and all those things. It could be that you're leaving your siblings, you're leaving your parents, extended family, your support network, friends. I know that's something that a lot of times when you build up this great network of people while you're in college, and then you all scatter to the winds, kind of like what possibly happened in high school. Everyone went to different universities, went on to different careers, and now things are going to be changing again. And so thinking about, well, how does this impact the people that you know? How do you stay in touch? Are they okay with you leaving? What's going to be, what happened there? And, ever since I left home, even going into college, my mom and I talk every single week. Back in the day, it was just through the phone, back when we had long distance phone plans, which I don't think is even a thing anymore. And then of course, when living overseas, it was using Skype. And even now, because my mom still lives in Florida, so we Skype every weekend, and that's how we stay in touch. And so then of course, if you have a significant other or children, how is that going to impact them? And really thinking through, how am I going to find the right schools? How is this going to affect their career, their education? Is the child old enough to be in school? Are you going to be moving during the school year? A lot of times what people will do is wait until the summer. So the person who's relocating for their job may go on ahead first. And then the family will stay behind while the kids finish up school or maybe finish up their education and then join them later. That's something you have to think about. Is that a plan that you're okay with? Some people are and some people are not. And if you move halfway through the school year with your children, how does that impact their education? Are they up to speed with that particular school district? And will that employer have any particular resources for your family, especially if you're moving overseas? Some companies that have overseas locations, they have support for the family members because they may not be allowed to work in that other country because of the kind of visa that you're on. So a lot of times I meet students who say, oh, I can't wait to live overseas. I want to travel abroad and all of those things. But then if you add family to that mix, that makes it a little bit more complicated. And what kind of lifestyle is that new location going to offer? Is there going to be a lot to do? Not a lot to do? Are you okay with either? And that really has, a big impact on making that decision on whether you're going to relocate or not. So if you've decided to relocate, you decide, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take the job, even if it's just simply moving down to Atlanta. Whether it's moving across town, moving across state lines, moving across the world, there's a lot that goes on with preparing for that move. So one thing, of course, is to really stay organized. And if you're not naturally good at organizing, find someone to help you with that, because there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to relocating. So some of that may be involved, keeping in contact with that employer. What are the steps that they need you to take, forms that need to be signed, and also what kind of documents are you going to need to take with you. One of the things that I always made sure that we kept with us, never went into the packing boxes. We always kept it on our suitcases, kept it with us, were marriage license, birth certificates, passports, documents that are really hard to get a hold of if you really need those. Any documents for, moving in terms of your packing list, taking pictures of your items. So that way you can, if it ends up broken at your next location, you have a picture of when it was not broken so that you can prove, this is what it looked like before you stuck it in that truck. So taking pictures of some of the valuable items, keeping if you have any valuable jewelry or money or anything like that, make sure you carry that with you, and really understand those relocation options that your employer offers, if they offer any. Are they leaving it up to you to move on your own? Which some employers, they're fine with you moving, but they may not support you in that. Find out if there's a relocation package to include additional, money for expenses, those upfront costs, especially if you're renting, and really research that location. And if you can visit, that would be great. I know with our supervisor down there in Gainesville, Edward, his son moved up to Wisconsin very recently, and he had never been there before. The first time he went was when he moved for the job up in Wisconsin, and had to learn everything on his own, where everything was. And I know when we were moving up here to Dahlonega, we were at the time living in Albany, Georgia, which is way down southwest, if anyone knows where that is. But we were in Albany, and so at least we were close enough that on long weekends we would drive up here, get a sense of the community, where things were. So that's always a good thing to do if you can do that. And the finances, again, Eric's going to be talking more in detail about how to calculate your cost of living. You really do need to figure out, is that salary going to cover things? What are the taxes? And being able to afford a home, whether it's to rent or an apartment. And Tanya, I know that that's kind of something you're working on right now, is trying to find a place to live closer to work and trying to find that affordable place that checks all the boxes. And I know it's always very difficult to do that. And then, really trying to set a budget for yourself when it comes to getting ready for that move. So now I'm going to turn it over. I'm still going to be sharing my screen, but I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and he's going to talk about all the money side to think about when it comes time for your move.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, absolutely. And Lori really summed it up well. One thing she left out is that sometimes you need to learn how to pronounce the name of the town you're going to. She lived in Albany, but people who had lived there for a long time probably lived in Albany, right?
Albany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and we used to think this was Dahlonega.
Joking aside, so there is a lot of different options when you take a look at What is the cost of living going to be there? What is my paycheck going to look like when I get there? What is that going to cover? And there's a couple of resources that we'll show today, which are some online financial calculators. There are tons of them out there. The ones that we show you today, I like, but you may like a different one. It's really just a matter of preference. Do a Google search for a cost of living calculator or a relocation calculator or a paycheck calculator, and you'll find one that you like. But I think what we'll do is kind of skip to those calculators now, Lori, and talk about them in the calculator. So. All right, so a cost of living calculator. Let's say your employer comes to you and says, hey, we have an opportunity for you in Austin. There's no money as far as a raise goes, but we'll keep your salary the same. You'll get a chance to see a new part of the country, maybe build something from scratch, have some more opportunity to move up in the company. We'll pay for your move, but there's no real raise. Well, the first thing you could do is a cost of living calculation, and really should do. And so what you see here is that in Austin, you would actually be making or taking home a little bit more money. And why is that? Well, you can, if we scroll down, then you'll be able to see that the cost of certain items is much lower. Housing may be a little bit higher, but transportation's lower. Food costs are lower. The other thing is there is no state income tax in Austin, right? So by just doing a quick search here, you can do a quick comparison. Now, if that same employer comes to you with the same deal, there'd be no raise, but hey, you get to go live in Los Angeles as opposed to Austin. You now see that you're going to be coming home with a lot less money in your paycheck because it takes $71,000 to live the same lifestyle that you're living in Atlanta. And the big cost here, obviously, is the taxes and the housing costs in California. It's just your $350,000 home in Los Angeles would cost you, over $800,000. So tools like this are really helpful for decision making and information gathering. And I would really recommend that you start here before you even consider giving your employer an answer. So moving forward, if you are, hey, yes, I might like to live in Austin. So let's do a paycheck calculation to see exactly what that's going to be like for us. So we would go to the paycheck calculator at this point in time. And thanks for running this, Lori. This is just wonderful that you're doing this for us. And so this is a paycheck calculator. And if we'll put our salary at 50,000 again, and then we take a look at the difference between living in Atlanta and living in Austin at $50,000. So we're still in Atlanta now at $1,584. And when you move to Austin, you'll find that you take home a little bit more money. Almost $100 more per paycheck. So $200 more a month. Once again, this is mainly because there's no state taxes in Austin. This is a pretty powerful tool for deciding, even if you're just thinking about accepting a job right out of college, you should do a paycheck calculation, because this one, as Lori scrolls down, will allow us to make some decisions about what we're taking home. How much do I want to contribute to a 401k? Or do I want to, should I pay for medical insurance, or should my significant other, so on and so forth. So here you could add in all those pre-tax deductions, because we all know that if you're getting paid $50,000 a year, you're not taking home $50,000 a year. So maybe you are paying for medical insurance, dental insurance. If you need corrective lenses, you may want to pay for $25 worth a month. And we definitely want to start planning for those long-term retirement plans, because who wants to work forever? So you can set a 401k. You could also do some other things such as an FSA or an HSA, but we'll skip that for right now. And you can see that this will help you adjust your paycheck so that you'll see exactly how much you'll take home once all those things are actually taken out. And so that $1,600 in Austin quickly dropped by $400 a month, but now you're covered on your insurances and you're planning for your retirement. So this will give you a more accurate projection of what kind of money you have. So if you are thinking of moving, you'll have an idea of how much money you'll have to pay for rent, or if you need a car, or so on and so forth. So that should be helpful as well. Who here is thinking about moving? Pop something in the chat if you're going somewhere.
Or for those of you that said that you were planning on moving, is there a particular state or a particular location that you're thinking about?
Well, then I guess that was helpful. Ah, both of you. DC's expensive. Got a job in Oregon. Hey, that sounds exciting too, going overseas. Tennessee, no state sales tax in Tennessee either. Or sales income tax, sorry. Everybody's got state sales tax. North Carolina, I lived there for 3 years. Camp Lejeune, as a matter of fact. So a little bit of military as well. So let's go down and see. And a little bit further, we'll talk about things to consider cost of moving. So what are you going to need? What is your employer willing to provide? So are you going to have to sell your home? Do you need transportation because you're used to public transit? Are you going to hire a moving service, or do you hire a truck and pack yourself? All these are certain things that cost different amounts. Even if you're packing yourself, you have to rent the truck. You may have to buy the boxes, so on and so forth. So full pack and unpacked service, if your employer is not providing that and you choose to do that, that's very expensive. And so we'll go down a little bit and we'll talk about budgeting for that. So does your employer offer assistance to move? This can be negotiated at your, when you're being hired, or more than likely it's going to happen when your employer suggests that there's an opportunity for you to move. If they come to you, you have more of a bargaining position than you volunteering to move. But either way, most companies of a certain size, mid-sized to large size companies, are going to have some type of relocation package, whether it's a straight line or they say, send us the bills and this is what we'll cover. I've moved both ways. One time I was given a package and basically they cut me a check, and anything I didn't spend, I put in the bank. And the other way was send us all the receipts and we'll cover everything. And so that was a little bit more expensive for them than it was for me the first time, but that's up to you, of course. So if you're hiring a mover, movers are required by federal law to offer you insurance. And there's two basic types: a full value protection, which your mover is liable for the total replacement cost of anything that's damaged during the shipment. As Lori spoke earlier, you want to document this, take pictures of things, show that they are intact. I would also photograph any serial numbers that may be on certain products, so that when you get to the end, there's no confusion as well. And then there's also a released value protection, and this is really not advisable. This is coverage that covers the mover for offering some insurance, but really doesn't do a whole lot for you. And if you'll see in that example, it covers basically something by its weight. So if you've got a $2,000 MacBook and it is paying 60 cents per pound, you're not going to cover the $2,000, right? So I would suggest that be a full value protection. Are you doing it yourself? Well, your renter's insurance, if you have renter's insurance now and you're going to keep it, that may cover some items in a move. Homeowner's insurance, I'm really not sure why I put that there. We can ignore that unless you're negotiating with your insurance company and planning to buy a new home elsewhere. But renter's insurance more here may cover some items that's damaging. And as we mentioned before, if you're doing it yourself, take a look. This is the paycheck calculator that will help you estimate the taxes that'll be in your new home and what your take-home pay will be. And we've already really covered that. So creating a budget for your move, if you're doing it yourself, don't forget some of the things like the truck, gas, furniture, moving insurance. Maybe you weren't thinking of that, but there's also, do you need to buy the moving boxes, the tape, the blankets? And don't forget about having to pay for food while you're on the road, or lodging while you're on the road. If you're moving across country, you're going to have a couple of nights that you'll probably want to stop and sleep. Replacing perishable items, all that stuff in your refrigerator. What are you going to do with it? Take some with you for the trip, and the rest of it's probably going in the garbage, and you'll need to replace it when you get there. And some items just don't make the trip. If you're moving from a large house to a smaller house, if you're moving from your parents' house to your own apartment for the first time, what can you take with you and what stays behind? Because you'll need to replace some of that. Maybe not immediately, but at some point. So make sure to factor all of these things into your move. If you're planning on moving out for the first time, and we don't have a slide for this, but obviously it's going to be something that many of you have dealt with in college, you're going to need a deposit for your apartment. Your employers or your new landlord is going to run a credit check on you, and so on and so forth. So make sure you're prepared for those expenses that you know and those that you don't.
Now, I just want to say really quick about the replacing the perishable items. It always was a challenging time when you were getting close enough to your move where you start, cleaning out the refrigerator and eating as much as you can, but you still need mayonnaise. And you don't have the little packets. All you've got, from the store is like the giant jar or no mayonnaise. And that was when we started, eating out a lot. And that's when the money goes up really high. And even your cleaning materials, because if you're moving out of an apartment and you have to clean it before you leave, the movers, they can't carry combustible and flammable items. So can you carry that with you? Do you just have to throw that away? And of course, buying them all over again when you get to your new place, because you'll probably want to clean it down, and getting a new mop, a new broom. You might not be able to carry all of that in your car or on an airplane. So yeah, to me, the perishable items was always kind of the tricky game there of, well, what can we throw away? What can we buy, but still carry with us? But can we eat it up fast enough? And so then thinking about, when you've arrived at your new place and you've moved and you really need to connect and also reevaluate your budget as well. And Eric, I want you to come back on really quick. When you're thinking about, again, that cost of living and the taxes and things like that, what are some of the things that they can also do in terms of getting their finances back in order? When you have all those upfront costs and the savings account gets to be really tiny and you don't want to be going into a lot of debt, how can they handle some of their finances with that?
Well, yeah, obviously there's going to be some out-of-pocket expenses, and there's some adjustment expenses as well with some items that you've placed on here. How often do you dine out? How often do you go out with new people so that you don't miss that opportunity to connect? How much does it cost for you to volunteer? Because we know that volunteering is not just about your time, it's also transportation to get there and lost opportunity costs and other things as well. So what I honestly suggest is that take your budget that you have now. When you get there, after a couple of weeks, let's take a look and see what has changed. And are these things that are going to persist, or are they opportunities for you to reset your budget and how you spend your money? So we honestly, just being aware of what is changing and what you're doing, being deliberate with it, you may have a substantially increased income as well, because certainly if you're going to move to some place that's more expensive, like our Los Angeles example, maybe that comes with a substantial raise. Maybe instead of making 50,000, you're making 85,000, which would be a raise no matter which city you're living in. So now we want to reset our budget again to reflect our new income as well. So it's not always that we're running out of money. Hopefully, if you're relocating, you're getting some kind of increase. I wouldn't have moved 3 times if I wasn't getting an increase each time I moved. I'll promise you that. But each time I did have to reset my thinking around my finances and reset my plan, because now I've got a different income. It's good that it's more, but it's still a new plan. So I would say be aware of that for sure.
Right. And I was thinking earlier today, I met with a student who, I was thinking, well, what are you going to do once you're no longer in college and you don't have all this go, 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 go. And, you're not going to be with your roommates anymore. You're going to be on your own. And she said, well, maybe I'll get a pet. And so then thinking about now those new expenses, pet deposits, food, veterinary services.
Replacing your couch, replacing your bedpost.
If you like to dress them up in little outfits, whatever it is that you like to do, that's more expense if you're going to be adding that as well. So it's a lot of different things to consider. And again, with that cost of living, I think that was always kind of the biggest issue whenever we moved, because we went to a lot of different areas that had drastically different cost of living, especially if you're overseas, if you're in California, if you're in Georgia, makes a huge difference. And, and every time I went someplace, I, of course, was the new kid, whether it was a new job, a new community. I always had to be the one that, said, hey, I'm new. And after a while, I got over the awkwardness, because I know that sometimes that's what stops us from making new friends in a new place, is that, oh, geez, I just want to sit here and do my job, and hopefully people will come up and say hi to me, but they're busy doing their own job. I live in my little box. I don't always know who's coming and going. And Eric, I don't even know where you are. Are you on the second floor?
I'm on the second floor, yes.
He's on, see, we're in the same building, and I don't even know where he is, because we all live in our little boxes.
But you just moved into this building too.
Well, yeah. But trying to, sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I'm the new kid. And be okay with asking for help and asking where things are and what's the, even if you're with the same company, they may have a different policy. We all know, if you've been on Gainesville and Dahlonega in particular, there are things that are done in Gainesville a certain way. There are things that are done in Dahlonega a certain way. And even though I am still with Career Services, I have moved locations. I was in the Gainesville campus for 6 years, and now I'm in the Dahlonega campus, and I still find myself going, where is this? Where is this person? Where is Eric? Where is student involvement? I don't know where that is. So I'm still learning the campus, even though I'm still doing the same job, but I'm still learning new things. So you have to, try to branch out and really ask for help. And I found one of the best ways to get to know people outside my little box is to join committees. And that also helps you get a broader perspective of what's going on in the organization. What are other departments talking about? What are some of their challenges? And then following up after those meetings, whether it's chit-chatting on Teams or through email or phone call or literally talking at the water cooler. So that way you can really kind of get to know that person outside of those meetings. And that's why it is so good if you can take lunch away from your desk or go get a coffee and just get to know people. Maybe even bring in food. If you like to bring in snacks, if you like to bake, you can do that. Make sure you always ask about people's allergies. I've got a coworker that can't eat eggs, so we always have to be careful about what we feed her. But decorate your desk with something. I mean, I've got all my little toys back here, and it is a good conversation starter if you're not sure what to say to someone. Have something on your desk that represents you, maybe a photo of someplace that you've been. And it can be a really good way to just kind of say, oh, you've been here. Oh, you like that movie? And just kind of, get to know the person outside of their normal work responsibilities. And Tanya, since you are the new kid, what are some of the ways that you've been able to adjust and get to know people there on the Gainesville campus?
Yeah, I always like to eat my lunch. I always like to go for walks outside around the campus. So as I'm going for walks, I say hello to people and walking down the hallway and different things like that. And I love to meet up and have meeting times, with faculty and staff here. So I do run into a lot of people just by taking walks around the campus on my lunchtime. But there's something that I wanted to say too about moving. Another thing to consider is decluttering. And I know that, I don't know about you, the things that seem to pile up, sometime, and it's a good time. Should I have a garage sale? Do I need to go sell something on Amazon? So, or do I need to stop by Goodwill? So a lot of time decluttering and don't be carrying the same thing around with you is a great thing to do too. And those of you who have kids, I know you have to look into the school system that's something else that you have to do as well. So I just wanted to put that in, and yeah, and yeah, so yeah, I'm thinking about getting a plant. Thank you, Lori, because I'm thinking about getting some sort of plant to survive in this office.
Yeah. An office with no window. Good luck with that. I never did find one, so hopefully you'll be able to find one.
Yes.
And you know, and that's the same thing with connecting in your community. You know, you can volunteer. It's a great way to meet people outside of work. And you know, again, I'm not from the Dahlonega area. When people say, where are you from? It's like, good. Yeah, I was born in Georgia, but then we moved to Florida, and then I married a Marine, and then we moved all over, and then we landed here. So I don't know, I'm from wherever. So you have to think about, well, how can I make this community now my home? And that's always something that every time we moved, that was always a challenge in trying to figure out where are the clubs and the organizations and the different activities, because when, especially once you've left the university and you're not in classes anymore, and you're not doing campus events, or you're not doing athletics or fraternity sororities, how do you make friends? And so sometimes it is through volunteering, finding hobbies that are in a group setting. And I went ahead and got a subscription to the Dahlonega Nugget. It's a small paper. There's not a lot in there, but in there it talks about different meetings. There's like photography groups, quilting groups, hiking groups. There's of course a lot on social media about different groups meeting for this, that, and the other. So find out where are those things. Follow the Chamber of Commerce for that particular area. They'll talk about all the events that are happening in the area. You know, if you've got kids, or you know, when you do have kids, have a play date, and that's when the parents start to get to know each other. Invite, you know, the neighborhood over for a barbecue. A lot of people like barbecues. So if you can have a street barbecue or cul-de-sac barbecue, neighborhood barbecue, you know, have a bring your own meat, bring your own drink, and everyone else can bring the sides for kind of a potluck. It's a good way to just start to chat with people, get to know people in a more casual, relaxed setting. And, you know, if, you know, you're looking for any kind of faith-based organization, you know, taking time to find those as well. I know it can be really tricky sometimes, you know, but that's when you ask around and say, hey, where are you going? You know, what are they like? And what's going on in this community?
Lori, if I could, you mentioned at the start of this, the opening, you move somewhere, but you don't really like the environment. A corporation or a company can have different work environments based on where you are and the culture of that location. And maybe you always wanted to live in Denver. You get the opportunity to move there, but all of a sudden you hate working for the company you were working for. All of this is how you stay in Denver and find your new job. I would say this is the first place you would start.
Yeah, and that is very true. Different locations, different management styles. You know, even though it is the same company, and it is important. You know, maybe you know where you are in the company. Oh goodness, I'm not sure if I want to be here, but really connecting with your community can be a great way to start making it feel more like home. So that if you don't like the job, but you like the location, then, you know, maybe it's a time for finding another employer, but staying where you are. So it's all these different things to consider and having some plans. And like I said, I've lived in some locations that would not have been my top choice. But home is where you make it. And, you know, every experience is what you make of it. And hopefully you can find, you know, those new connections and find those great outlets for making a community for yourself. And again, thinking about the entire move, especially if it is for a job, thinking of it as an identity choice. Where do you see yourself in your career? How do you see yourself either with that company, within that community? And again, how does this impact your family? Whether it's you're moving away from your family, you're moving away from your support network, or is it that you have, you know, some loved ones that are coming along with you? And thinking about how that impacts your finances as a whole. Is it going to be for more money? I hope so. But what if your significant other has to lose their job and then go on the job hunt? how is that going to impact your finances now that you're down to one income? And that can have a real impact as well, especially if you're paying for daycare, buying new things, all this stuff really, piles up. And so readjusting those finances. And I cannot stress again, making those connections. And that's what's really going to make your new home an actual home, whether it's at the job, in your community, because you definitely don't want to find yourself just feeling lonely. And so it's taking these steps, and sometimes you have to take the initiative. Again, people get so busy with their everyday life that they may forget that the new kid needs some attention, and that they need to be shown around. And so speak up and just get to know people. And again, sometimes just trying those little tactics to kind of start that conversation is something that you can, really work on. And then, of course, you can always meet with Career Services and, of course, Student Money Management Center. And Eric, your services are available to alumni as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We're happy to work with alumni. If you need help budgeting for your new location or budgeting for your move or examining your 401k options, so on and so forth, which is our next meeting next week, right? Salary negotiations and 401ks.
Yep. So next week, we're going to be talking about how to negotiate that salary. And then Eric, of course, is going to be talking about how do you, take care of your 401k so that you can actually have money to retire. And if you didn't get the chance to travel while you were working, then maybe you can travel well after you retire. But hopefully you can kind of, plan and budget those things too. And Eric can help you with all those really cool things. And Career Services is still here for you after you graduate as well. So making sure that, you can always come back. We can help you with your job search. And as you can tell, quite a few of us have moved quite often in our lives. So it's something we're pretty comfortable talking about in terms of making a new home, and then just the moving process itself. Little things such as bag up all your utensils in Ziploc bags so that the movers don't lose anything. Make sure you catalog everything that you own so that it doesn't disappear on you. Eric, any last parting words before I launch our next poll?
I would just say this: if you are getting a raise when you move to a different location, so now your income is higher, I would strongly urge you to upsize your goals and your goal attainment rather than your lifestyle. A lot of people will upsize the size of their car, the size of their house, so on and so forth, and they fail to hit on that opportunity to really move ahead on getting to a place where they are so much more self-dependent and self-directed.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So let me go ahead and launch our last poll. And so this has a two-parter to it. So tell us, if before this chat, how confident were you about this information? And then after the chat, how confident are you after you've received some of this information? And just a technical thing, and Tanya, I think, has already addressed this in the chat, but if you only have your first name in your profile, especially if you're looking to earn PROS credit for our business students, make sure your first and last name are in the chat. So Tanya can write down your first and last name, and we'll be turning in the attendance roster to PROS so that you can get your PROS credit. You don't have to worry about a QR code or anything like that. We'll just be submitting the roster from Zoom. But because Zoom only records what your profile says, we do need your first and last name if you haven't already put that in there, and Tanya will make sure she'll keep track of that. So I will go ahead and end this poll and share the results. So it looks like you feel a little bit more confident, and yeah, you can definitely keep coming back to us for more guidance. And it's great to see that quite a few of you are like, nope, I got this. I'm ready to go move and ready to see what other new adventures are out there. But before I go ahead and turn us off, are there any questions that anyone wants to ask at the last minute? And if not, it doesn't look like it just yet. But again, thank you, Eric, for being here today. Really appreciate all your expertise and sharing all those different resources. Again, this session today was recorded. So when we get this uploaded, it's going to be loaded onto our YouTube page.